Welcome to the On the Move podcast. My name is Alan Clelland, and I'm Vice President of the Board of Management of the Pasadena Community Access Corporation, PCAC, and I'm a 24-year resident of the city of Pasadena. PCAC is the parent organization of Pasadena Media. I'm pleased to be the host of this, episode 4, of Pasadena Media's monthly On the Move podcasts exploring mobility issues in the city of Pasadena. Our goal is to provide information to our community on current issues of interest, present new ideas, and take an occasional look at Pasadena's history and so how we got here. Our last episode looked at events affecting mobility happening in Pasadena around 1900. We heard how the pressure to accommodate cars impacted street design to the detriment of bicycles and other road users. In contrast to this, in this episode, we will examine current efforts to make our streets accessible to a broad variety of road users. For this enlightening discussion, I'm pleased to have as my guest Blair Miller, representing the Pasadena Complete Streets Coalition. I was first introduced to PCSC by the City of Pasadena's Department of Transportation during my professional career, when I became aware of the coalition's efforts here in the city, some of which you'll learn about on this episode. So, welcome to On the Move, Blair. Could you please introduce yourself, your role in the Pasadena Complete Streets Coalition, and any other relevant activities you are involved with?
Thank you so much. My name is Blair Miller, and I was an original member, founding member of the Pasadena Complete Streets Coalition, which started in 2013. It was a group of people coming together who were worried about lack of safety on Pasadena streets. There'd been a number of high-profile injury and fatalities, and we were concerned about the kind of continuing traffic violence in Pasadena and wanted to be able to do something about it. So we formed the Complete Streets Coalition.
Excellent. Are you involved in anything else to do with transportation?
I'm a previous member of the Transportation Advisory Commission.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
Yes.
Also had served on the Planning Commission and the Design Commission.
Oh, we have that in common.
Yeah.
TAC. Yeah, Pasadena TAC. What's the best way to describe PCSC currently?
Yeah, so we are an all-volunteer organization and completely volunteer-driven and led. And we advocate for safety for every user of Pasadena streets. That includes drivers, that includes people who are riding bicycles or scooters or walking. And we also try to provide fun activities for folks in Pasadena to get out and enjoy the beauty and architecture and gardens and all the other wonderful things that there are in Pasadena and be able to appreciate them without a car.
Oh, we'll be sure to come back to that and talk about that in detail later. So it's quite a broad view that you have of what's going on the city streets. Yeah. And what's your relationship with the City of Pasadena's Department of Transportation?
Yeah, we work very closely with the city's Department of Transportation. We meet with our staff regularly. They have asked us for our support frequently when it comes to applying for grants. We are also sometimes in the position of making requests for them or asking for things that they may or may not decide that they want to do, but they are always very willing to hear our input, which we very much appreciate, and we try very hard to support their efforts as well.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the intro, they introduced me, the city's Department of Transportation introduced me to PCSC during my professional career, and it was pretty clear that they did have a lot of respect for the work that PCSC was doing as well. Yeah. So how are you organized? Because it's such a broad topic to address.
Yeah, let me just comment on that and then I'll tell you how we're organized. But one of the things that we try to do is we try to do our homework. So we try very hard not to waste staff's time. And we do try, if we're coming to the staff with a request, to have evidence or backup and have done our work our homework with that. So I think that is something that generally is appreciated with any city staff on any topic.
Yes, because the details that you need to be aware of when it comes to not only, what you're designing, what they're designing on the street, but how they got there, and the constraints that they are working under, often with funding sources. It's very good to have a knowledge and an understanding of that, to be able to comment.
Yeah, most of our group are not trained traffic engineers, but most of our group who've been working on these issues for a long time have gotten quite knowledgeable in a lot of the, as you said, constraints that the staff are dealing with in terms of state laws or other, we know a lot more about what streetlights cost than probably your average Pasadena citizen. Because that winds up being impactful in terms of proposing changes. We're like, everybody wants a streetlight there. Okay, but it costs $150,000. So, we need to talk about that.
Okay.
Or more, actually. How the Complete Streets Coalition is organized, as I mentioned, we're all volunteer, and we have a steering committee, but most of our decisions are made by all the voting members, and you become a voting member by contributing time instead of money. So if you volunteer for 20 hours in a year, you become a voting member, and the membership gives the direction on everything from which issues we choose to work on to which issues we decide to support. We do have a steering committee, which helps manage the organization. The steering committee determines who speaks on behalf of the organization. Steering committee helps manage the budget and also will make decisions if there's a time-sensitive decision that needs to be made.
This sounds like a very flat organization. If you've got the members, the membership, after that 20 hours, contributing and helping to decide what are you going to be interested in, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. That's a very flat organization.
Yeah, and it's also exciting because anyone can come and propose what we work on to the group.
Oh.
So we don't have the people at the top of the organization saying, this is what we're working on this year. It's all what people decide that they want to work on collectively. And sometimes someone comes in with a brilliant idea and everybody's like, that's great. Let's go work on that together.
Oh, and this is coming from the membership, from people in the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you have to be a resident of the city of Pasadena to be a member? No.
Nope.
Just interested in.
We have a lot of folks who work in Pasadena.
Of course.
But they might live in unincorporated county or nearby city.
Yes, and they want to have a voice in transportation and mobility as well, because they're using it generally on a day-to-day basis. Yeah?
Exactly.
Great. So given this organization, and you're volunteer-driven, yes, which has its own challenges, can you give us some idea of past successes that the coalition's had?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of our recent past successes, the city has launched an Ebike Rebate program, and we advocated for its launch and worked closely with Pasadena Water and Power to help shape that program. They were very reluctant to go forward on it, but we were able to show them examples of how it had worked in other cities, and it's actually been a wonderful success, and they're about to vote to reauthorize additional funding for the program.
So this is an e-bike program within the city of Pasadena?
It's through Active San Gabriel Valley, which is one of the partner organizations. But the city had... Oh, sorry. That was a loan program. The Ebike Rebate program was actually in the city of Pasadena, and it's for buying e-bikes. And there's a low-income component to it. So your subsidy goes up if you need additional subsidy to help afford the e-bike.
So that's if you're buying an e-bike.
Yep.
If you're not sure about having an e-bike, that's when the Active San Gabriel Valley scheme is really handy, because then you pay a monthly rental for a bike. So you can understand how you're going to use it and what features you need on it and that sort of thing before you commit to buying. Yeah,
they work really hand in hand, because there's a lot of people who are able to try out an e-bike through Active SGV, who will now be able to buy an e-bike through the Ebike Rebate in Pasadena.
That's right. So once you decide you're going to have one, you know what you want, you go and buy it, and you come back to the city for a rebate.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
That's quite the program.
Yeah, it's great.
Because there's such a range of bikes that you have to use them in for your situation to
Right.
understand exactly how it's going to contribute best to you.
Yep,
Yeah,
definitely.
excellent. Sorry, so you're talking about past successes?
Yeah, so
It's
we
the e-bike program.
we created Walktober, which is a celebration of walking in Pasadena every October, and it was entirely volunteer driven until the city started funding it a few years ago. But in our last year before the city funded it, we ran 30 walks, all volunteer driven, in 1 month. Yeah.
Goodness me.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
From volunteers, that's quite something.
It was great. It was a great program, and the city really appreciated it. And then now they're funding it to keep going. So we have, they usually hire it's traditionally been done by DayOne, and then the Complete Streets Coalition still participates. But there's at least a part-time staff person for a few months who can help organize it.
You mentioned DayOne. What is DayOne?
DayOne is a nonprofit in Pasadena that focuses on youth and health. Yep. So having youth be able to safely walk and bike around is a very important issue for them.
So you work with DayOne?
Yeah, they're actually our fiscal sponsor since we're not even a nonprofit. So if anybody contributes funds to the organization, it gets routed through DayOne.
Okay. So you're non-profit, volunteer. What about when you've got something organized that the public are attending? Are there any insurance issues you need to deal with there?
Yes, exactly. And we use DayOne's insurance. So as our fiscal sponsor, they provide the insurance as well.
Oh, that's good
great.
cooperation there.
Yeah, it's great.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
I've interrupted you again. So you
And then just other, with any plan that's related to mobility in the city, we give input, the Bicycle Transportation Action Plan, the Pasadena Walks Plan, and then we advocate on specific issues. Most recently, the use of the funds that were left over from declaring that the 710 wasn't going to continue construction.
Oh, yes.
There were funds that came to the city. We advocated for those funds being used for certain projects, and eventually they were.
Excellent. Yeah, that whole 710 program, which is still very much alive and changing, especially with the recent decisions made not to progress with the extension of 710.
It really freed up kind of two different things. One was a pot of money that had been set aside to help build it that was more immediately freed up to help address mobility challenges in Pasadena, especially near the area of the 710. Mm-hmm. And then it frees up the land itself. Yes. And that's the subject of an ongoing discussion in the city about how to reuse that land. And I'm actually on that working group.
Oh, excellent.
The Reconnecting Communities working group.
Reusing the money that was the grants that were.
They've been sort of separated. So the money has been committed and is moving forward. The reuse of the land will take a much longer time to determine what that should be.
Now, I remember when I got involved in the 710 early days several years ago. Mm-hmm. And in those days, when you were looking for the justification of project expansion such as that, mm-hmm. you always had to justify it through vehicle miles traveled, good mm-hmm. old VMT. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a much broader view of road users. Has that changed the use of VMT at all?
Well, we actually made a shift from level of service to VMT.
Oh, okay. So, so it went from being really focused on traffic.
Correct.
To a broader range of vehicles being taken into account for miles traveled.
Yeah, it's not just a broad. It's the idea is that what you use your land for helps determine how much people have to drive, basically, or commute. And if you can put housing near jobs and housing near services and housing near transit, mm-hmm. You can reduce the number of people, the number of vehicle miles traveled, basically VMT. Right. In particular, the idea is to try to cut down on sort of longer commutes from like Palmdale and stuff. That's kind of a longer term goal. The problem was that the way the system was set up, it would newer developments that were actually near jobs and transit would generate trips. And the way to deal with that was to make the roads wider and faster.
Yes.
And that was a problem because you have these kind of conflicting goals directly.
Yeah.
And so by reorienting how we're judging things to include things like, are we bringing housing closer to jobs and services and transit? We want to help promote that. So now we're not in as much conflict anymore.
Oh, that's a tremendous shift in thinking. It really is.
Yeah, Pasadena was the first in the state to adopt that under Fred Dock, who was the director of transportation two directors ago. And the Complete Streets Coalition was a strong advocate and supporter of that change.
Excellent. You must be very pleased with the way that went then.
Yeah, and then the rest of the state adopted it. So we were just slightly ahead of our time.
Okay, so given that commendable history, really, what are the sort of current activities that you're involved with as a group at the moment?
Yeah, so we're kind of focused on 3 areas or questions. One is generally a safer network of streets in the city for people to move around without a car. We're not necessarily talking about adding bike lanes. What we're talking about is creating a network of streets that cars and bicyclists and pedestrians can all share more safely. So as your listeners are probably aware, there's a couple of different sources of collisions, but one of the things that makes like distracted driving, but one of the things that makes a collision deadly is the speed that the car is traveling. So if you want to be able to move around more safely outside of a car, you want to try to make sure that we're avoiding interactions where the cars are going really fast. Right. So, and we'd, obviously love to have things be safer on every street in Pasadena, but we are focusing on creating a network of low stress streets called Greenways that would connect the Union Street protected bike lane, connect into the Roseways, which is just an already identified group of low stress streets, and give people a way to get around more safely. So there's 4 proposed greenways, each of which goes north-south through over the freeway or under the freeway, so people can get from one side of Pasadena to the other.
Right. And the greenways are, which are the north-south streets for the greenways?
The proposed greenways are El Molino, Wilson, Sierra Bonita, and Craig, going from west to east.
Going from west to east there. You mentioned Union Street.
Yeah.
Was the coalition involved at any stage in the development of that? Because that was quite a radical project in terms of allocation of space on that one-way street to the different road users, culminating in the 2-way bikes on the street. Yeah.
We were not involved in the original proposal being submitted and the funds being awarded, and that was a source of frustration to our group. It's not necessarily the project that we would have chosen. There are some studies that show that 2-way bike lanes on a 1-way street have some challenges when it comes to safety. So we would have preferred there be sort of a longer process with more input where we might have made a different decision about what we applied for. But one of the things that you probably know is you can't get money for one project and then use it for something else.
Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely.
So we had this award, and then we were moving forward. Once we had the award and we were moving forward on it, we were excited to, get the first protected bike lane in Pasadena. Again, if we'd started from scratch again, is this what we would have chosen to spend $10 million on? Probably not. But in the meantime, it's actually working very well, better than we even expected. It's pretty well used, but it'll be a lot better used once we have people who feel safe getting to it. And that's part of the problem.
Oh, well, yeah, but you have to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, I was particularly interested in that because last year I was on vacation back in England, small seaside town, beside Bristol, the large city. And I came out of the hotel one morning, and lo and behold, here was Union Street, right on the promenade, the beach, for access to the running alongside the beach. And it was a 2-way bike lane with 1-way traffic. It was exactly the Union Street design, and everybody was quite enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
There was some concerns at the beginning, apparently, when I asked questions locally, but they said it's working very well now.
Yeah, I think ours is working well. I mean, part of the reason it costs so much is because you have to replace your lights. So
Yes,
especially,
yeah.
so they had to add light poles, which costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But they're there and they're working, and I love it. I use it all the time.
And I should imagine that once you're used to this concept of there could be two-way bikes as you're coming out of that street, you start to look for that in the future in other places as well. And it just then improves the safety aspects. So talking about the future, there's a lot of talk going on at the moment about Rose Bowl.
Oh,
And
yeah.
You mentioned the Roseway. There's no connection between Rose Bowl and the Rose Bowl.
Sorry, I was going to tell you the other two things that we're working on. So we're working on the network, which we call the Greenways. Another thing we're working on is access to the Rose Bowl, especially in light of the fact that we may potentially be hosting an event for the LA 28 Olympics, and we have some other major soccer football events coming up. There's not enough ways to access. The Rose Bowl hasn't been that well set up for accessing either on bike or on foot. For example,
Right.
there's actually no bike racks at the Rose Bowl itself. The closest bike racks are at the Aquatic Center, which is a fairly long walk from the Rose Bowl.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's a lot that could be done to make pedestrians feel safe, getting from, let's say, Memorial Park Station down to the Rose Bowl and back.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit that could be done to make that more known and appealing to people who are coming in and out. So that's another one of our programs. And then the last thing we're looking at are transportation issues in Pasadena, advocating for shade and amenities at bus stops, and looking at the BRT, bus rapid transit, and how it's going to come into Pasadena and serve Pasadenans.
Yeah, shaded bus stops, especially with the weather like we've been having at the moment.
Exactly.
That's got to be a popular
Yeah.
topic. I'd like to go back to the Rose Bowl, though, because looking into the future, again, another future view of the Olympics, I've been told, I understand, that one of the goals is that restrict vehicle access to the Olympics. And really make better use of transit and other services like that. So what you've just been describing has got to tie into Olympics plan as well, doesn't it? You work with the Olympics committee at all?
Well, we do know Sam Morrissey, who's the
Yes.
transportation director for LA 28, because he and I used to be on TAC together, and he's very interested in and supportive of Complete Streets Coalition. We're working through the Department of Transportation on this, because they're the ones who are interacting on it. But yeah, we're definitely very excited to help support that. But we are now in 2024, and the Olympics are not very far away. So we do need to be planning for it now.
Yes, and of course they're going on in Paris at
Yeah,
the moment.
starting
so it sort of
tomorrow.
brings attention of, we've only got a few years and
Yeah,
we're going to be here. Yeah,
exactly.
Getting prepared for that. But do you get the feeling that the kind of concepts that you've been describing, that the coalition is promoting, that they're becoming mainstream? Could you go as far as that? Or is that still a sort of future vision for you?
That's a good question. I don't think they're mainstream. I don't really feel like there's a broad understanding of how. I don't think there's enough of an understanding that Pasadena ranks very poorly among cities of its size for traffic violence. I think there's just a general acceptance here in Pasadena and around the country that this is how it is in the United States, that 30 or 40,000 people a year will be killed in collisions
Yes.
compared to other countries of our
Tragic,
size.
yes.
We've just accepted this is how it is. I don't think there's a general understanding of the relationship between speed and the deadliness of collisions, and how generally it's more survivable to be hit at 20 miles an hour. And if you get hit at 4 miles an hour, you're not really going to be able to survive. And there's a really dramatic difference there. No, I think these things are not yet mainstream. And we do have, folks who are actively working to stop all of our proposed,
Right.
safety improvements. So
So
yeah.
the promotion of the kind of awareness that the coalition promotes is still essential.
I think
carry
so.
on with.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think our work is done.
So if I'm interested in the coalition and contributing to this, what's the best way for me to find out more about it? And
Yeah, we are on social media, and on our website is pasadenacsc.org. We're very easy to find on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, just Complete Streets Coalition. Yeah.
Excellent.
And, we have a vision in the future of being able to move around safely and comfortably, to have local transit that's frequent and easy to use, and to have a greener and literally shadier city in the future.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Just quickly, any fun events that are coming up?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So last year in 2023, we did one bike ride and one walk per month. So we wound up doing 24 events, which was amazing. We're not quite as ambitious this year, but we have wonderful bike rides and walks, all of which are free. You can RSVP through Eventbrite. We have 3 summer nighttime rides, which are always super well attended, 80 to 100 riders with lights and music. And we have 3 of those coming up, including one coming up this weekend. And then there'll be another one in August and another one in September. So definitely go on our website, follow us on social media, and we'll be also doing a lot of walks for Walktober.
Marvelous.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Blair. That was fascinating insight that you've given into the Pasadena Complete Streets Coalition. And I'd like to thank the audience for joining us and viewing this. And we hope that it's been interesting and will stimulate your interest in walking and biking, amongst other things. Thank you.